All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have our first. I don't even know if I want to say first, but we have a very substantial report on some big time players for the San Francisco 49ers and their contract negotiations. Yes, I am talking about Brock Purdy, George Kittle, and Fred Warner. Mike Silver dropped a pretty substantial report on Twitter today and really indicated a lot of different things, both potentially good and potentially not so good for the San Francisco 49ers. So, what we're going to do is we're going to hop into what that report actually said, and then we're going to react to it and just really get a sense of how fans are feeling about this. So, I'm going to want to hear from you, but first, you guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat, smash that like button, and let's get into it all right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, faithful? Hopefully, you guys had a good Easter and time with your family. And it is time to get into what feels like a new section of the offseason. As we know, the draft is this week. So a lot of changes going to be happening to the 49ers roster via new rookies being added to the team. But we also have 49ers players reporting for the first day of the offseason tomorrow. And in this Mike Silver report, he basically identifies how this could be a sign of where things currently stand with the San Francisco 49ers and a couple of their big time contract negotiations that are happening with, of course, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, and potentially Fred Warner. So let's hop right into it, right? We don't need to waste a bunch of time. This is what Mike Silver is reporting if you have not seen it yet. So let's dive right in. He says some reporting for The Athletic. The 49ers offseason program begins tomorrow, and there's some uncertainty about whether players seeking a new contract, specifically quarterback Brock Purdy, tight end George Kittle, and linebacker Fred Warner will show up for voluntary activities. Now, the key word here is voluntary, meaning they aren't permitted to have to show up. So if they want to let's use George Kittle, for example. If George wants to hang out in Las Vegas after he just attended WrestleMania, he can do that. It's a voluntary obligation. But, it's the first day and, you got a bunch of new free agents coming in. It's an opportunity to get guys in the building, probably a good time to kind of get everyone together and get prepared for this new season. Again, not mandatory, but not a bad thing to show up for either. So this is what Mike Silver says about Brock Purdy specifically. He says there has been some progress towards a multi-year extension for Purdy that will likely pay him more than $50 million a year. The question is, how much progress? If Purdy shows up on Tuesday, it's a sign that he and his agent believe they are very close to striking a deal. Very interesting. He goes on to say if he doesn't, that probably indicates that some significant obstacles remain. As of now, no decision has been made. So there's a lot to unpack here, so let's get into it. So what I do like to hear initially is that there has been progress. I'll take the progress. I'll take any progress in a contract negotiation that involves the San Francisco 49ers and one of their players. That's a good thing, in my opinion. He also identifies kind of a targeted number, basically saying that the 49ers are expected to pay Brock upwards of 50 million. Now, there's plenty of conversation that can be had of what that target number actually is. Where are the 49ers targeting? Where is Brock Purdy and his reps targeting? You know, where's the number? What do they have to get to? What gap needs to be closed? There's been plenty of speculation. I would have to assume that Brock Purdy and his camp are angling either at 55 or north of 55. I would have to assume that the 49ers are angling for 50. It almost sounds like very similar to that hypothetical scenario that Adam Schefter dropped about like a month ago. And we talked about it and we said, that sounds like Adam Schefter's in the room with these guys. Like that's very fascinating observation and astute insight from someone who's not involved, who's basically presenting hypotheticals. But either way, it kind of aligned with this situation right here. Let's say the 49ers are angling for 50, like that to be the number, not wanting to go too much higher than that. I think if the 49ers and Brock Purdy land anywhere between 50 and 55, I think that's a pretty solid situation considering the fact that Dak Prescott got 60, and the fact that the 49ers don't have to go up to that range. If they could stay below 55, I'm sure that would be considered a win for the most part. Some people might not like it. I've seen a lot of fans recently kind of pushing back on the number that Brock Purdy should get. And to be fair, I totally understand. I get that large majority of fans don't sign up to extensively cover contract negotiations, to understand the market and how that all works. So I totally expect the numbers to be all over the board with fans. It's funny though when you see people who are actually educated on this situation throw out numbers that don't actually logically make sense based on what the market is dictating. So, whatever it is at the end of the day, it does sound like there is progress, and hopefully we get clarity soon. We did hear a while back that potentially maybe after the draft could be a target date for them to get something done. So, hopefully that is the case, but it remains to be seen. Now, another thing that Mike Silver adds to this is he says that basically Brock Purdy's participation actually correlates to the progress of the deal. He's not hype. This isn't a hypothetical. He's basically saying that if Brock shows up tomorrow, that it's a sign that they are very close to getting a deal done. We're going to get to Kittle here in a second. Not as positive of an update on Kittle. I'll just say that. So, if Brock Purdy shows up, I would imagine he would want to show up as the quarterback on day one of the offseason program. Maybe it could be an indication that they are going to get something done. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But he also does mention that if Brock Purdy does not show up, that this could definitely indicate that there are more obstacles to overcome. So that's, I guess, now on our docket for tomorrow. We are going to be painfully aware if Brock Purdy shows up or not. So that's what we're now going to be looking for. And if he does show up, we are then going to be like, oh, look, things are going good. If he doesn't show up, we're going to be like, uh-oh, things are not going good. So take it for what it's worth. But that is where we currently stand with Brock. Now let's move on to Fred Warner and George Kittle. So as you can see, you have Mike Silver saying a Warner and the 49ers have yet to have any substantive talks about possible extensions, but the veteran team leader is likely to report. So we have heard some speculation throughout the offseason that, you know, Fred Warner could be looking for a new deal. You know, as like a low key player that isn't heavily discussed in that regard, but it could be something that the the all pro linebacker could be angling for. So we'll have to see if anything will be done, because when you look at his contract, he is going to be playing on a contract that carries a base salary of 17.6 million, and he will be carrying a cap hit of 29 million this year. And then his final year looks like it will be next year at the age of 30. So if the 49ers were to potentially renegotiate, I would have to assume there would be a potential to get that cap hit down for this year and next year, and kind of kick that down the curb to maybe 2027, 2028. So maybe that would be a reason why the 49ers would want to extend Fred, because I don't think they want to get rid of Fred, and they would probably want Fred Warner to be a part of this franchise for a long time. And so getting a deal done now, yes, you're paying, upfront signing bonus and those kinds of things, but you would be able to kick the cap space and kind of alleviate some space, from my understanding. All right, well, now let's talk about Kittle. This one is not the same at all. This is what's going on with George. So, and Mike Silver is, I know for a fact, is very tied into Kittle's camp. So this is what he's having to say. Heading into the final year of a 5-year, $75 million deal, George Kittle is much more of a long shot to show up tomorrow. And he and the 49ers remain far apart in discussions about a new deal. So how do we take this? How do we process this? As we know, the market yet again has jumped up while the 49ers are in an active negotiation with a player. It's almost like Groundhog Day. 49ers want to pay a player. The market explodes right in front of them. This time it's Trey McBride with the Cardinals, who gets paid $19 million per year on average, making McBride the highest paid tight end in the league. Whereas I think we would all take a step back and say George Kittle is the best tight end in the NFL, not Trey McBride. So what does that mean for the 49ers? What does that mean for Kittle? How much money will Kittle be looking for in this new contract and the extension? Again, I talked to George at the Super Bowl. He mentioned that he wanted to be a 49er for life. He wants to be able to wear and retire with the red and gold. So he doesn't want to play anywhere else. He wants to play here. He wants to finish his career here. And that is definitely something that he is looking for. I also reached out to a couple people who are in the know, and it does sound like George Kittle is definitely a long shot to show up tomorrow. But again, that's not a crazy surprise. I believe he's currently in Vegas right now. And he was taking in WrestleMania. Again, caveat being is these aren't mandatory. So he is not missing out on anything mandatory. But still, an unfortunate situation. If these reports are accurate and that they are very far apart in these negotiations, because I think that puts a spotlight onto the draft coming up. So this is kind of how I look at it. When we look at these reports, sounds like the situation with Brock is progressing. To what level and to what extent, I don't think we know for sure, but it does seem like it's moving in the right direction. Again, it seems like for the most part, the 49ers do want to get this done. It's again just at what number do they want to get this done? I'm not very I'll say it like this. I don't love the fact that the 49ers appear afar apart in a discussion with George, because I do think that opens up the door for them to take calls. And when I say to take calls, um, I'm saying they could listen. I don't I don't know if the 49ers would actively look to trade George Kittle, but I also do believe in everything that I've learned about how these negotiations work and what happens behind the scenes is that they will definitely take calls for sure. Just to gauge interest, right? Due diligence. What does a team value said player? What would they be willing to give up? Would it make sense for us to make this move, et cetera, et cetera? So I think the thing that makes me nervous is, let's say they take a call and let's say they get an offer that they're like, oh, that's not a bad one. I'm like, oh my gosh, please no. Uh, I don't like it. I don't think it would be a move that benefits the San Francisco 49ers. Um, I think that having George on this team for a multitude of different reasons makes them a better team. I think that his presence in the locker room, I think the standard that he helps sets and has for his team is huge. And not only what he does on the field as a blocker, but as a pass catcher, obviously, big fan of George. I don't think George should go anywhere. Now, I also understand that you can't you can't have every player for the entirety of their career. Like that is just not something that is a reality. You're going to have to make moves sometimes. You're going to have to let players walk. Doesn't matter how legendary they were for your team. It's just a part of the process. So I recognize that. I'm not going to sit here and say that I am completely ignorant to that. I just think that there are so many positives that Kittle brings to the table, especially with a young quarterback like Brock Purdy. What the tight end is used for in Kyle Shanahan's scheme. And again, this dude's like the face of the franchise. This guy's like one of the faces of the NFL. Um, he is a 49er, like through and through. And I just would hope that the 49ers would take care of a guy like that and you know, give him the opportunity to go out and win a Super Bowl with this franchise, because Kittle wants that. George is all about that. He wants to win. He wants to play at a high level, and he wants to go out and get this thing done, and he has been above and beyond what the 49ers have paid for. So And I don't think when you look at George, like he doesn't look like he is going to slow down. Like he is a couple years out from slowing down. So I typically, when I look at players who are in their, early 30s that you're looking to pay, it's not necessarily something that I'm like, yeah, let's pay this guy at this age this contract. But again, there's just a belief that I have in Kittle and what he brings to this team and how he will continue to play at a high level, that he would be able to maintain his level of play. And if anything, get him the ball more, use him more in the passing game, make him a primary target, and give him that opportunity to, really maximize the value in which you pay him. So I think he's done it to the best of his ability, uh, and I don't think that he's going to taper off uh, anytime soon. So I'll say this: I'm not projecting or expecting anyone to get traded. I'm just simply stating the fact that anything can happen. You guys have heard me say it before. Like, even if I adamantly believe something will not happen, that won't happen. Jimmy Garoppolo will not be on the San Francisco 49ers in 2022. That will not happen. That would be that would be insanity if Jimmy Garoppolo is on the 49ers in 2020. Well, guess what? Jimmy Garoppolo started football games in 2022. That was the most like definitive I think I'd ever felt on something surrounding like a roster transaction. Like, oh yeah, Jimmy said bye to the team. The 49ers clearly are moving off of him. They drafted his replacement, yada yada yada. It's like, there's no way. There's no way they're gonna keep Jimmy. Oh, they kept Jimmy. And so that's just the way that I'm processing. The way that I'm processing is that although there are multiple ranges of outcomes, you can say there's a likelihood or not a likelihood. You can never say never. You can never say never, especially around this team. So that's why I like to enforce boundaries. Like, this next invisible date for me is the draft. If the 49ers get through the draft with Kittle and with Brock and with Fred, again, I don't think there's any concern or likelihood of trading Fred, or really concern or likelihood of trading Brock, or I don't have a ton of concern or believe there's a likelihood of trading Kittle. Um, I do think that you just have to be cognizant. You have to be aware that during the draft is when all these GMs are picking up the phone. Hey, what would you take for this guy? Or hey, what would you take for this guy? What if we send you this, that for that guy? And those conversations happen. So I'm not naive to that. I recognize that. I'm just hopeful that no one calls and offers enough where the 49ers would consider it. That's all I'm saying. So I don't anticipate anything happens. I don't expect anything to happen that dramatic. But again, I would not be using my full brain if I said that I don't recognize all the potential ranges of outcomes. So I like to put the ranges of outcomes out there. We talk about it, we discuss it, we place likelihoods to it, and then we move on. So other than that, um, you know, it'll be fascinating to see what happens with the draft. Like I said, I don't think any I'm not anticipating any insane fireworks. We did get a report, I think it was from Adam Schefter, who said that the 49ers are one of the teams in the NFL that would be willing to trade back. I'm all for that. Let's trade back. I want, like, this is how I look at it. If the 49ers have, let's say, 9 blue chip certified first round grades on these prospects. And there isn't the run on quarterbacks in the top 10 like we had hoped for. We didn't see Shador go in the top 10. We didn't see Jackson Dart go in the top 10. So none of those top players get pushed out of the top 10. So we're sitting there at 11, but that means those quarterbacks would be available. And that's what's the potential enticing thing for another team. Just because the 49ers want to trade back doesn't just automatically guarantee that they will, right? There has to be a team that is motivated to move up. And so 11 potentially becomes the trade up spot for a quarterback. So if a team wants to go get Jackson Dart, if a team wants to go and get, let's say, I don't know, Shador Sanders, whether it's, the Steelers. I saw some reports about the Broncos potentially wanting to be aggressive and trade up. If the 49ers drop back into the 20s, all the blue chippers are gone. There really isn't a huge drop off between the guys you could take at 11 and the guys you could take at 21. So, like, let's say the 49ers are considering Walter Nolan at 11. I like Walter Nolan. I think Walter Nolan's a good prospect. I think, he's a player that I do think would fit. He's twitchy. He can get after the passer, and he can hold up in double teams and in the run game. He's a 3-down defensive tackle. But I do think there's a chance he could potentially be there at 21. So, or maybe Derek Harmon out of Oregon, or maybe the defensive tackle out of Michigan. They're all kind of in a similar tier. They're in the same tier. So what you could do is theoretically drop back, acquire more top 100 picks, and then get the guy that potentially you were targeting at 11 and get more shots at the top 100. Because I think the meat of this draft is where the best talent is ultimately going to come from. I think there's going to be some day 2, day 3 steals, or not day 2, day 3, round 2, round 3 steals. I think there's going to be some guys on day 2 that are really going to be impact players at the next level. So that's where my mind is at. I'm like, listen, I look at the 49ers roster and I see holes all over the defense. So it's not a guarantee that whoever you draft is going to be a hit. So with the looking at the 49ers holes on their roster and understanding they're going to have to take shots at this defensive line. They're going to have to take multiple defensive tackles. They're going to have to take multiple DNs. Well, you want to also give yourself a little bit of wiggle room that you don't have to nail every single individual pick. Of course, you want to hit every single individual pick, but we know the reality of the draft, and we know that that's just the likelihood of that happening would be very difficult. Like when you look back at the 49ers draft last year, they did a great job. They hit on so many picks, but it's not a guarantee that they're going to do that again. It could happen, definitely, for sure. But I like to have more opportunities. I like to have more shots to be able to make sure that I'm hitting on these guys and I'm hitting on these picks. So that's the way that I like to look at it. I think you could get a same caliber player in the early 20s that you could get at 11 if the top guys go. So that being said, that's kind of where I would like to go. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I'm not projecting that that's going to happen. That would just be my preference if the opportunity presented itself that the 49ers could stack more day 2 picks just by dropping back and then they could get really creative by getting some very talented young depth on this roster. So that's kind of the way I like to look at it, and we'll see. We'll see what ultimately happens from there. But if I had to ask you in the chat, what would you guys prefer? Would you prefer the 49ers look into trading back? Would you prefer that they stand pat at 11 and pick who is best available on the board? Or do you see a world that exists where maybe they trade up? Because something I do want to mention, we do know that the uh the Bears aren't taking a quarterback. The Saints might need a quarterback. Could there be a potential pathway for a trade up? Like let's say the 49ers want to pick at 9 instead of 11. And the Saints are like, well, the Bears aren't going to draft a quarterback. So we could drop back 2 spots, acquire some additional capital, not a huge move, and still take the quarterback that we were going to take at 9, except we take him at a different pay slot. So he's a little bit cheaper, and we acquire some capital. But maybe it wouldn't have to be a ton of capital that the 49ers would have to move. So maybe would you consider that? Like you that might give you the shot at like one potential big time player. So I would say that would maybe be the only scenario where I think I'd be okay with a trade up. It's because I don't think it would cost that much. I don't think they would have to give a ton of capital to go from 11 to 9. And it could benefit both teams in that scenario. Not saying that's what they should do. I'm just presenting it could be a potential option. I'm still leaning more towards trading back, acquiring more day 2 picks, and taking BPA at wherever you trade back to, because I would love to see the 49ers get a little creative here. And even if it's maybe you could also obtain a day 2 pick and a player, right? Like you could also get a player in return. It just doesn't have to be um draft picks. You could acquire players in a potential trade back scenario. And we know the 49ers need some players and they could use some veterans. So maybe that would be a course as well. Stack a 3rd round pick and get a potential starting caliber player or a player with starting upside. So that's kind of why I like the notion of a trade back is um is that you could acquire multiple things, multiple like a player and a pick. And so you can kind of again continue to you could continue to refine and retool this roster because it needs that. It needs that for sure, especially on the front 7. If you ask me, uh, I would say at minimum, I need 4 defensive linemen out of this draft. I need at minimum 1 linebacker, um, probably a cornerback as well. A lot of picks have to go towards the defense. So I don't know. It's gonna be fascinating to see how it all plays out. But yeah, there's still a lot of holes on this defense. And if the 49ers are gonna want to compete in division, they need to they need to stack that defensive line. So they got to get after it, man. They got to get after it. And that's what I think makes this draft pretty exciting, is that we have no clue what is going to happen or what the outcome is going to be, or anything. Like, it's literally a crapshoot. Anything can happen. Um, and it could go in so many different ways. So um I'm really looking forward to this. This one's going to be fascinating. I'm actually hopping on a plane tomorrow. I will be flying to Green Bay to be able to cover my first draft. So this is going to be a fascinating experience. I could potentially have the opportunity to interview the 49ers first round pick if he happens to be in attendance at the draft. I could have a huge opportunity to be able to interview the 49ers first pick. So um, I think on a Wednesday there's going to be an open media session with all the prospects that are in attendance. So I might be able to snag them also before the draft, and I'm going to try to link with some of the prospects that I think the 49ers could potentially target. And then if I can get them after the draft, that would be fire as well. Am am I excited for those cheese curds? I'm just excited, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I've been able to accomplish a lot of things on my bucket list. Um, from doing 49ers content, covering a Super Bowl. Um, the first game I was ever credentialed to was the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, the outcome wasn't ideal, but the fact that I was able to literally cover a Super Bowl as credentialed media was crazy. Um, being able to cover the combine, being able to cover the Senior Bowl and all these other events, it's been awesome. And I haven't done this one yet. This has been the one that I just haven't gotten the opportunity to yet. That whether it was the timing or whatever, um, but I'm excited. I'm excited to get there and excited to experience the draft in person and see what it's all about. And with the 49ers picking at 11, it's the highest they picked in a long time. So we could actually talk directly to one of the prospects that they take literally right after they walk off the stage. So that's going to be crazy if that's the way it plays out. Um, but I'm excited to so Juan says, you look like a Green Bay person, you'll fit right in. Oh, guaranteed. Guaranteed. They're like, you from here? I'm like, nah, I'm from the Bay. So I'm excited. It's gonna be interesting. Just how it's all gonna I don't really know what to expect. So it's going to be a bit of a whirlwind. Um, and I think the content should be pretty similar to how we've covered the draft in the past. Um, but again, it's gonna be wild with the whole uh you know going and interviewing the prospects. That's going to be a new wrinkle, obviously, into the mix. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm just excited to be boots on the ground and be able to really just enjoy one of the premier NFL events, and I'm excited for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I don't know when the press conference is tomorrow with John Lynch. I could or could no, I think it's like 11:30. Let me double check. I think I have it right here. Um The press conference is at noon. It's at noon. So my flight doesn't take off until about 2. So I should be able to still get stuff out on that for sure. So I'll be able to bring you whatever updates come out of the presser, and then I'll be on my flight, and we'll be on our way. So looking forward to it. I'm also going to have a prospect on today. It'll be our last prospect interview of the cycle. I'm going to have Cal offensive lineman TJ Sessions. He was in attendance at the 49ers local pro day. The 49ers have, reportedly shown him some significant interest throughout this process. He, I think, in my opinion, profiles as a guard at the next level. So could be a potential option for the 49ers in the later rounds. We're going to talk about his process so far, and that's how we're going to wrap up our prospect interviews. And I'm looking forward to it. We had phenomenal guests on this process. I think we had, I don't know, something like 8 or 9. And we had some phenomenal guests. Really, really great ones. If you haven't checked them out, you can check them out on the channel. But yeah, I appreciate everyone. So that will be at 2:30. 2:30 we will do, or 3:30. 3:30 we will be doing our live. So I'll be back. But again, shout out to you guys. Hopefully I'll see you there. Remember, smash that like button on your way out. And I will see you guys later on today. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see you.